Forget the night of my senior prom. Night of my senior prom, I'm 18 years old. I'm at home putting on my tuxedo when my dad walked in the room and he handed me a condom. Snuck it to me in a handshake, so fucking gross. Then he looks me right in the eyes and he says, Anthony, do you have any questions? And I said, yeah, Dad. Do you have one that's still in the wrapper? I'll never forget.
Good morning. It's Thursday, Jordan Peterson Thursday, March the 12th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Jordan Peterson. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
Varney and Company picks it up right now. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. There are new developments in the war, and they are hurting the market. 3 ships attacked in the Gulf, 2 of them, tankers, set ablaze. Energy Secretary Wright was asked if the Straits of Hormuz could be opened by the end of this month. He said he was hopeful. Goldman Sachs says if the closure stretched into April, oil could get close to $150 a barrel. The Iranians have threatened to attack any banks in the Gulf states which do business with Israel or America. Goldman Sachs has told some workers in the area, work from home. And here's the impact on the markets. First of all, oil. It hit $100 a barrel before backing off, but it's still well above $90 a barrel, 92, 93 right now. That's up 6%. Gas going up some more. The average for regular is now $3.59, getting close to $3.60. In California, you've got to look at this, $5.36. That is the average for regular in the Golden State. More selling in stocks. The Dow Industrial is down probably about 300 points at the open. NASDAQ down about 150. The S&P down 43. Interest rates edging higher. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is now 4.22%, real close to 4.25%. The 2-year moving to 3.65%. Not much movement for Bitcoin, roughly $70,000 per coin as we speak, 70,300. Not much movement for gold. You're still looking at 5,200 an ounce, almost there. On the show today, a positive outlook on the war from the president. He says the market is holding up well and oil will be coming down. His optimism shared by Larry Fink. He runs BlackRock, the giant investment firm. He says if the outcome of the war is neutralized Iran, oil could drop to $50 a barrel. On the show today, New York joins the Tax the Rich Brigade. Democrats in the state want to raise rates on high-income earners and on rich corporations, and they want a mansion tax. Almost all Democrats looking for re-election or campaigning for high office now have a Tax the Rich platform. We're going to follow up on the Iranian women's soccer team. They're back in Iran, against their will for most of them. We don't know what has happened to them or their families, but we do know that female athletes who have stayed quiet on the Iranian situation have been roundly condemned. Thursday, March 12th, 2026.
And that was Varney and Company, non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. A loss of influence is something the liberals cannot bear, but that is precisely why you as a conservative must rise. Not only for your own growth, but to show the world and to remind yourself that you don't need liberal approval to succeed. You are already enough. Your success stands tall with or without their recognition, and that burns brighter than any fleeting validation liberals could ever offer. Accountability is something that liberals absolutely despise. It's a concept they will do everything in their power to avoid because it forces them to face a reality that they've spent their entire lives running from. For the liberal, accountability is not just uncomfortable, it's a direct threat to the carefully constructed persona they've built. This persona, this inflated version of themselves, thrives on deception, control, and avoidance of any real consequences. They need to believe that they are always right, always in control, and never responsible for anything that goes wrong. When you hold liberals accountable, you disrupt that carefully crafted illusion. They will avoid it at all costs. They'll deflect. They'll shift blame to others, sometimes even to you, no matter how illogical it may be. Liberals will lie, bend the truth, distort facts, or outright fabricate stories to avoid any implication that they've made a mistake or caused harm. Liberals may even manipulate situations, twist words, and create confusion to ensure that they never have to face the consequences of their action. It's a psychological defense mechanism, a survival tactic that allows them to maintain the illusion of power, control, and perfection. But here's the powerful part. When you calmly, consistently, finally hold them to the truth, you strike at the heart of their fragile ego. You remind them that reality is not subjective, the truth is not up for debate, and that consequences are not negotiable. You force them to reckon with their own behavior in a way they simply can't escape. And in doing so, you start to dismantle the facade they've worked so hard to build. It's easy to get sucked into the drama they create, to get caught in the whirlwind of their lies and manipulation. But real power lies in remaining grounded in the truth, staying calm and consistent. When you refuse to allow them to wriggle out of responsibility, you take away their control over you, and while it may not immediately change their behavior, it will begin to shift the dynamic over time. The liberal starts to realize that they cannot continue to manipulate conservatives with the same tactics that once worked. They cannot gaslight you into questioning your reality. They cannot get away with lying without you calling them out. This doesn't mean you need to engage in a prolonged battle with them. Liberals thrive on conflict, and they will escalate things as long as you allow them to. What's important is that you hold firm to your truth, setting boundaries and holding them accountable when they overstep. The liberal may try to turn things around on you, to play the victim or to twist the narrative, but your job is to stand firm. Their lack of accountability is not your burden to carry. When you stop enabling their behavior, when you stop accepting their lies, when you begin to take back your power, the liberal may not like it, they might fight back with every ounce of their being, but here's the reality. Truth doesn't need validation. It stands on its own. When you insist on living in the truth, when you refuse to accept their distortions and deceptions, you become untouchable. You are no longer a pawn in their game. You are forced to be reckoned with, a person who values their own integrity and holds others to the same standard. So, when you encounter a liberal, remember they may run from accountability, but you have to stand firm in your convictions. Hold them accountable for their actions, not with anger or frustration, but with calm, unshakable resolve. Remind them that reality is not theirs to manipulate and that the truth will always find a way through the darkness. The more you do this, the more you will see their power over you fade, and the more than anything is what they fear most. This is not about revenge. This is about redemption. You don't need to destroy a liberal to defeat them. You need only to become someone they cannot control, and that begins with strength, with discipline, with truth. The moment you stop playing their game is the moment you start winning yours. They hate that, and that's exactly why you must do it. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Monty Franklin.
Australian word speed round.
Shopping cart.
Trolley.
Rocky road.
Hokey pokey.
Tired.
Knackered.
Tic-tac-toe.
Noughts and crosses.
Swimsuit.
Togs.
Sweater.
Jumper.
Hoodie.
Jumper.
Jersey.
Jumper.
Full.
Chockers.
Crowded.
Chockers.
Chocolates.
Chockies.
Throw.
Chuck.
Pass the TV remote.
Chuck us a remote.
Vomit.
Chunder.
Skip work.
Chuck a sickie.
Chicken.
Chook.
Good luck.
Chookers.
Watch this.
Check this out.
U-turn.
Yui.
Can of beer.
Tinny.
Reckless driver.
Hoon.
Boxed wine.
Goon.
And that was Monty Franklin. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, motivation.
This is the difference between the good and the great. The good, they talk about it, sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. The great execute. You gotta execute. You just gotta make one more shot than they make. One more run than they make. You just gotta last one more quarter than they last. You just get one more out than they get. You just one more down than they had. Execution. Execution. You just one more push-up than the next man. One more free throw than the next man's willing to take. That's all you gotta do. To be great, all you gotta do is just a little bit more than the next person is willing to do. And if you're willing to execute just a little bit more, your percentage, if you look at Michael Jordan when he played, he made millions. And if you looked at how many points he scored, it was like 29, and the next guy was like 27, 28. What does that mean? Michael Jordan just made one more basket than the average player in the NBA, and that one more basket made him a millionaire. And I'm telling you, you're not where you want to be financially. You're not where you want to be in your personal life. And it's not going to take 20 shots. For some of you, it's one more shot. For some of you, it's two more shots. And you have not given yourself enough credit to say, I just need to get up a half hour earlier and my whole life will change. I just need to work 1 hour longer. I need to stop hitting that snooze button.
Turn your damn TV off. Turn your phone off a lot, too. It's such a convenient escape from the work. It's such a convenient escape from our obsessions. Can you get laser obsessively focused almost to its exclusivity for an extended period of time? I'm talking about a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, even a decade towards something you want so badly you want it like oxygen. It's like you want it like you want to eat. You want it like you want to live. Are you extendedly laser focused on it, or do you get distracted easily?
If you have diluted focus, you get diluted results.
What happens when you hit a tree 1,000 times in 1,000 different spots? Absolutely nothing. But what happens when you hit the tree in the same spot 1,000 times, day after day after day? It does not matter how big that tree is. You gonna bring it down. If you want to be successful, if you want to dominate in the area, you gotta let everything go with that thing you pursue. You can't chase two rabbits and catch both of them. So you put your attention on one and go after it.
It's not through diversification, it's through concentration. You gotta go all in on the thing.
You say you want to be great. You say you want to get to the next level. You say you want to be dominant. You say you want a promotion. You say you want to start your own business. You can talk it all day. You talk entirely too much about your dream. You talk too much about your goals. You just talk. We don't need all that talking. We need execution. It's not about talking. It's about doing. Shut up. Go to work and show me. Show me what you got. Show me. You're wasting time from the grind. Just shut up and grind. And let your grind speak for you. And you got to get to a point where you are so locked in, you are so centered that you don't hear anything around you. All you hear is the dream saying, let's go, E.T., let's go. E.T., come on. One more class, E.T. One more embarrassment, E.T. One more hour, E.T. Push, E.T. Push, E.T. Push.
Don't stop. Narrow your focus to one idea and make it work.
Stay focused on the goal.
Stay focused, stay committed, not the shallow commitment, not the commitment that's predicated upon external factors, the commitment that says, can I stay true to what I said I would do long after the mood that I've set it in has left.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Dr. Berg.
Let's talk about the 18 signs that your body is deficient in key nutrients. The mistake people make is they end up treating the sign or the symptom and not the underlying cause. But we're going to talk about both. Starting with number 1, skin tags. These little skin tags are benign, but they're indicators of something deeper. This is a classic blood sugar issue. It's either the person is a pre-diabetic or they're an actual diabetic. The best test is called A1C, which gives you an average of blood sugars for 3 months. If your A1C is above 5.7, that's pre-diabetes. You can actually reverse diabetes by reducing your carbohydrates like sugars and starches and increasing high-quality protein from meat. Research indicates that you can reverse type 2 diabetes in less than 10 weeks. Number 2, itchy private parts, or you just itch somewhere in your body, especially at night. You have too much fungus overgrowing on the surface of your skin. This usually comes from either taking antibiotics or a person that takes steroids, because then you wipe out the good bacteria that control the fungus. Because fungus, candida, and yeast love sugar, guess what you're going to crave? Sugar. The best strategy to get rid of it is to completely starve these microorganisms. Just as a side note to itchiness, vitamin D can greatly help your immune system and also help reduce itching. Number 3, nighttime restlessness. I'm talking about mainly your legs, called restless leg syndrome. Feeling like they just can't relax, burning, achiness. All of those symptoms are symptoms of too much lactic acid because you're missing a really key nutrient called vitamin B1, thiamine. This is the nutrient that allows you to burn up fuel and prevents the buildup of lactic acid. Anytime you take B1, you also need magnesium because that's a helper mineral to make B1 work. What causes a B1 deficiency? Too many carbohydrates and sugars. As you see, this is a common theme. Number 4, tingling, numbness in your toes or your bottom of your foot. This is a nerve problem. These nerve problems occur in the ends of your extremities, your hands and your feet. You see this a lot in diabetics because in diabetes, you're consuming too many carbs, which deplete B vitamins, specifically B1. To correct this, you want to take a very specific type of B1 called benfotiamine. I would take just 1 4 times a day, and you're going to see relief like you've never seen before very quickly. Number 5, bleeding gums. That's a vitamin C deficiency. If you take a look at an advanced severe form of vitamin C, which is called scurvy, one thing that blocks the absorption of vitamin C is sugar. So everything's kind of coming back to that sugar. You need vitamin C to make collagen to keep the capillaries really nice and strong. But I wouldn't take the synthetic form, ascorbic acid. I would take a whole food vitamin C complex or consume foods high in vitamin C. Bell pepper, kiwis, lemons, limes, things like that. Number 6, chronic cough. This is usually a calcium deficiency or acid coming up your esophagus, reaching the throat around the vocal cords. So you have to be able to differentiate the two. How do you do that? If you have digestive issues or maybe heartburn or burns in your esophagus, think more acid reflux. In which case, you need to consume more salt. You can take a remedy called betaine hydrochloride that fixes acid reflux pretty quickly. If you don't have digestive issues, and this is just kind of like a spasm and irritation, some calcium would go a long way. I like to get my calcium not from a supplement, but from a high-quality cheese, so you can try that. A lot of children that have coughing need a little bit of calcium, or even if they have a fever, taking calcium is the fastest way to get rid of it. It really helps them. Number 7, carpal tunnel syndrome, pain or swelling in your wrists. This is a vitamin B6 deficiency. B6 is needed to help reduce swelling. It's also needed to make the protection around the nerve. This is probably why even like a lot of pregnant women get carpal tunnel syndrome, because they run out of B6. They also become nauseated. So you have the feeling of nauseousness and carpal tunnel syndrome. Think B6. The type of B6 that I would recommend would be something called P5P. Number 8, brittle nails. This is a classic biotin deficiency. If you don't have enough biotin, oh my gosh, the nails just kind of break very easily. Just take a little biotin to help that. Number 9, if you run on the cold side, especially your feet or hands, I would recommend iodine in the form of seek help. You can get iodine from shellfish as well. Number 10, this includes a lot of different problems that occur in the early morning. Cramps in your legs, migraine headaches, and even chest pain as a potential heart attack. These are all magnesium deficiency symptoms. The big question is, why would it happen more in the early morning? Well, that's because magnesium is on a circadian wave or rhythm. And the lowest point with magnesium occurs in the early morning. The real simple solution is to take magnesium glycinate before you go to sleep. It'll help you sleep. Number 11, ulcers or gastritis. Think zinc deficiency. And the best form of zinc for this condition is zinc carnosine. This type of zinc helps heal wounds. Right, next one is the nosebleed. This can happen if you have high blood pressure, but it can also happen if you're deficient in vitamin K1, because vitamin K1 is all about preventing bleeding. It helps you clot, but also the vitamin C deficiency can create a bleeding nose as well. Right, next one is chest pain, or pain down the left arm, or pain in the left shoulder that's related to the heart. This usually is a vitamin E deficiency. If you look at literally every single mountain peak where you have E deficiency, if you look at literally every single mountain peak where you have mountain climbers, you'll find empty bottles of vitamin E. The vitamin E deficiency will lower your oxygen carrying capacity, especially in the heart. Also, it allows you to breathe better at high altitudes. The best vitamin E to take if you have those symptoms would be something called tocotrienols. Number 14, those little raised little bumps in the back of your arms. This is a classic vitamin A deficiency called retinol. And you can only find that in animal products. It's in liver, it's in egg yolks, it's in cheese. But you're not going to be able to correct this by eating more carrots or spinach with the so-called vitamin A. Cod liver oil will give you vitamin A as well. 15, if you're deficient in sodium, you're going to feel fatigued, you're going to have insomnia, and you're also going to have weak muscles. If you have any of those symptoms, just up your salt, and it works like magic. 16, decrease libido is a classic zinc deficiency. I would recommend taking 50 milligrams maybe a few times a day. And once your low libido is handled, then you can start reducing it from there. All right, next one is dry, scaly skin. This means the person has too much omega-6 fats and not enough omega-3 fats. They're consuming a lot of seed oils, but not enough fish oils. Some of the best source of omega-3 is from cod liver oil or fish oil, or sardines, salmon, get it wild caught. Number 18, the little white dots on your nail. That's a classic zinc deficiency. One of the key things that deplete zinc is sugar. I think I've talked about that before. If you want to correct this, you have to also correct your diet as well, or it's going to keep coming back.
Thank you. And now, Jordan Peterson.
What stories might be typical of human beings? Well, the leftist types, the Marxists, the postmodernists for that matter, most of them, they believe that the fundamental human story is one of power. You know, and we're in a culture war about this. Make no mistake about it. This, you know that. You wouldn't be here otherwise. This is not a trivial matter. The insistence from the materialist types for the last 100 years, one of the profound insistences was that the only reality on the narrative side is one of power. This is what people are taught in universities constantly. How do you understand marriage? Well, it's the story of the power of the patriarchy insofar as that regulates man and woman in the cultural sphere. Marriage is a patriarchal institution. It's the fundamental subjugation of woman to man. Well, how do you understand economic relationships? Oh, it's power. It's the exploitation of the worker, to take a Marxist trope, by the capitalist class, by the owner. It's a victim-victimizer story. It's the same thing. It's power. There's a distribution of privilege. Those who are at the pinnacle of who are at the successful end of the distribution, they're the oppressors. They use power to exploit those who are weak. That explains all economic relationships. You can apply the same lens to history. History is nothing but the power struggle between different claims to power. That is absolutely what people are being taught in our institutes of higher education. And it's unlikely that there's a doctrine that's more corrosive in relationship to the actual spirit upon which your country and the free West in general was founded. Those are antithetical stories. What's the alternative story? Well, let's lay some out. Here's another story. Do what you want will be the totality of the law. That's a somewhat mangled quotation from Aleister Crowley, who was a Satanist in the late part of the 1800s. He was like a disciple of the Marquis de Sade. He was one of these people who believed, as you can believe rationally, that why the hell shouldn't I do just exactly what I want whenever I want to whoever I want, regardless of, well, let's say the cost to them? What's the rational argument against that? What if I have power and I won't get caught, for example? If I just get away with what? The untrammeled expression of my most primordial desires. Why not let that be the story? One whim after another. That's the hedonistic story. It's a cacophony, that story, because as you know from your own experience, if you give yourself over to your immediate wants, you're just one appetite after another, right? There's no real coherence there. You basically have the same psychological status as a very badly behaved 2-year-old. Well, 2-year-olds are like that. They don't have their fundamental pattern of being and personality isn't integrated yet. And so they're more or less at the mercy of their whims. And a hedonist is a worshiper of his own whims, right? And he's a pagan in that sense because it's just one damn desire after another. And he might say to himself, well, those are my desires. He might identify with those desires. And that's really, what would you say, the cardinal form of identification in the modern world. I identify with what my wants are, particularly sexual wants. That constitutes my identity. And anyone who gets in the way can go directly to hell. And that's a very pathological mode of being, and there's a variety of reasons for it, not least that it's exactly reflective of the same kind of immaturity that makes 2-year-olds entirely self-centered and driven by instinct. Now, you might say, well, what's wrong with that? And 2-year-olds have their delightful element. They're very enthusiastic, they're very spontaneous, they're kind of alive in a fiery way, but they're completely incapable of taking care of themselves. Right? And this isn't a hypothesis. You don't see roving bands of thriving 2-year-olds running through the forest organizing themselves. Well, why not? Well, it's because that short-term, self-centered, whim-dominated possession doesn't allow you to exist in the world. You have to mature. And of course, that's what you're trying to do with your kids as a parent, is you're trying to shepherd them through the process of maturation. Well, why? Well, so they have some friends. Because if it's all about them, well, then they don't have any friends. And that goes for all of you, too. If it's all about you, good luck with your marriage. If it's all about you, you don't have friends. You might have, if you're a bully in particular, you might have, toadies and thugs who benefit from your use of power, but you don't have friends. If you exploit your customers as a business person repeatedly to redound to your own immediate advantage, you're not going to have customers for very long. Your reputation is going to precede you. You're not going to do well in the world. So what do you do instead? Power is a bad story. It's a corrupt way of looking at the world. It leads to violence. It's generally manifested in service to a narrow kind of hedonism, because why have power unless it's to get exactly what the hell the worst of you wants from moment to moment? If you're not under the sway of some self-centered and relatively malevolent whim, you don't need to use power on other people, because you could just ask them to go along for the journey. And maybe they would. That's what you do when you play instead of when you use force. That's what you do when you invite instead of using force. That's what you do when you establish a vision that other people share instead of being a tyrant. Well, that's what you do if you're mature. Let's say you have a scrap with your wife. You have a fight with your wife, a disagreement, and you win. You win. She's wrong. She's punished for it, whatever way you can manage. What's the problem with that? You're right. She's wrong. Well, let's say you do that 50 times. Well, now you're living with someone you always defeat. And so now you're living with someone who's defeated. And what's the problem with that? Well, they're around. Right. And so maybe that's the problem with attaining a manipulated victory over your marital partner. Fine if it's a one-off, but they're there when you wake up in the morning. And so is the consequence of your, self-centered, power-based maneuvering? Right? And maybe you're a victorious tyrant and she's a defeated slave. Well, that's not much of a victory there, buddy. Right? And the same applies to any reciprocal social relationship. If you have any sense, if you think it through, you want to build up the people that are around you. Well, why? Well, because they're around you. And so if you made generous offerings to the social world and you improved the nexus of relationships that you were involved in, why wouldn't that be good for you? Now, you might think, well, there's only so much to go around, and if everyone else wins, I lose. But that's another story, and it's the story of power. And it's a very bad story, and it's not true. Because the truth of the matter is that there's more than enough for everyone to do, and your victory doesn't have to ever come at the cost of someone else's defeat. I shouldn't say ever. I mean, there are times when people are head-to-head, and the game that's being played isn't fair, and it's your victory or your defeat. But those are very pathological and unnecessary circumstances, and it would be better to do everything you can to ever avoid being in a situation like that. Situations like that arise when your relationships have deteriorated radically. And I would say as well, the same thing applies to the story of power. Power is the manner in which social relationships, or even your relationship with yourself, it's the story that makes itself manifest when the proper story collapses. Right? It's the degeneration of a state that turns it into a tyranny. It's not the victory of a state. And it's the same at every level of social relationship. If you're tyrannizing yourself, that's a failure. If you're tyrannizing your wife, that's a failure. The same with your children, the same with your friends. It's not an optimized pattern of being. It's not about you. It's not about the whims that narrowly possess you. That's a more accurate formulation.
And that was Jordan Peterson. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.